Good morning, students. Today we are going to continue with the remaining part of the chapter which we started. Uh, so, what are you anyway? Now, before we start today, I suppose you have your book with you, and let's have a quick recap of the story which we had done earlier. If you remember, the main character of the story, who is Carol, she is traveling in an airplane and she is a child of mixed parents, that is a black and a white parents. Now while she's sitting, a white couple comes and sits beside her. Now this white couple, when they see her complexion, which is neither totally black nor white, it's a mixed kind of complexion, so they are curious to know her race. They are curious to know about her parents, which race they belong to. So they start asking her uh, this way and that way to find out what her race is. And Carol is totally ignorant about any such thing. She does not know what is race and what is color, what is racism exactly. So she is not able to get to the point what they want to ask. And then Mr. and Mrs. Norton, they try to explain her by asking that what is the color of your father, or what is your father, what race is your father. And even when Carol is not able to understand, then also, then Mr. Norton, he asks that, okay, you imagine you have a coloring book and you have to paint the picture of your father there. So what color would you paint his face or your father's face? So we were reading on page 28. We'll start from the top. So Mr. Norton asks Carol about her dad, and then Carol imagines that what a stupid question or what a senseless question is it, because the picture of dad which he has in her mind is that a father is just her dad who does so many things for them, like on Sundays he makes pancakes for them and lets Carol pour hot syrup on it as much as she likes. So Mr. Norton then comes up with another explanation. He says, Norton leans towards Carol. We are on paragraph 54 now. Norton leans towards Carol. Say you had a coloring book. What color would you make your dad? So this is the question he asked to explain it to Carol. I never just use just one color. So, Carol, this is the answer Carol gives. She says, when I paint, when I never use one color, I kind of mix colors and make. Okay, what color would you make his face? So he says that, okay, what color would you make his face? Brown. So this is Carol's answer. She says brown. And your mother? And the next question comes up is, what color would you make your mother? Carol imagines a blank page. What would she put in her mother's face? She has to put something in there. She can't leave the page blank. I don't know. Now, Carol is already confused. She's already upset. She is not able to make out what these people are up to. So, when she confronts this question, that what about her mother? What color she would paint her mother? So, Carol starts imagining, and if she's making her mother's face, what would she put in? And so she's confused and she says, I don't know. Sure, you do. So, Mrs. Norton, she's trying to encourage her that, of course, you do it. You do know. How would you make your mother's face? Yellow, she says. Carol sees Mr. and Mrs. Norton look at each other. Is your mother Chinese? Mrs. Norton asks. So when Carol says yellow, now Mr. and Mrs. Norton, they start looking at each other, and then they ask her this, that is your mother Chinese? No, she says. Are you sure you'd color her yellow? Again, Mrs. Norton asks. No. Then she says no. What else might you color? So again, they are trying to make her come to uh, the answer, the point. So, what else? Carol feels ashamed at her stupidity. Now, Carol, she's feeling bad. She's feeling ashamed at her stupid answer, that she's not able to answer this question, that what color would she face would she paint her mother's face. So a tear races down her cheek. She starts crying. Tears start running down her eyes. So look at the condition of this child at this point. How upset she might be, and moreover, how confused and baffled she might be, because she is not able to get to the point that why are these people asking such questions which she has not which she has no answer to. So she is still imagining that what color she would make her mother's face, and the next answer which she gives is red. She finally says red. Red, and when Mr. and Mrs. Norton, they hear her answer, they are very shocked, because they cannot imagine anybody having red colored face. No? So red, you can't color a face red. Is your mother white? So now they come to the point. She says, you can't paint anybody's face red. So now they give her an option, that is your mother white? Is she like me? Her face is the color same as mine? So now they give her an example, that okay, is your mother just like me? Her complexion is just like me? Is she white? And Carol says yes. And your father's brown? Carol nods. So she agrees that her father is brown and her mother, she is white. When you say brown, do you mean he's a Negro? So now they come to, from the color of the skin, now they come to the race. So they say that, okay, when you say brown, you mean to say that her father is a Negro? Yes, of course, her father is a Negro. So she says yes, because the writer says, yes, of course, her father is a Negro. If Mrs. Norton wanted to know all along if her dad was a Negro, why didn't she just ask? So she's thinking that for all this long, if this is what they wanted to know, that whether her father is a Negro or not, so why didn't they come straight to the point? Why were they asking what race and color of the face and this and that? So they could have straight away asked her, that is your father a Negro? And she could have answered quickly. So you are mixed. Mrs. Norton says, you are a mulatto. So now they come to another word. So she says, Mrs. Norton says, that means you are a mixed child. You are a mulatto. A mulatto is a term. It's rather an offensive word which is used for someone who has one black parent and one white parent. So it's in a kind of hurtful term. So they call her a mulatto. Carol's lips quivers. So Carol is shaking literally with fear now. What is a mulatto? She has never heard this word. So she's wondering what this word is. Why do they keep asking her what she is? She isn't anything. And now she's thinking that why are these people asking her what she is? She isn't anything. So she's thinking that she is a human being. So why are they asking what she is? So she isn't anything, an object or something like that. She is a human being. So what do they mean when they ask her what she is? So is that it? You are a mulatto. Again, Mr. and Mrs. Norton, they comment that, okay, that is the conclusion, so that is it. You are a mulatto. You know what a mulatto is, don't you? And now they want to ask her whether she knows who is a mulatto. Haven't your parents taught you that word? So, when they see this kind of expression, an expression of shock and ignorance, so they probably guess that she doesn't know what is a mulatto. So they ask her, do you know what's a mulatto? Haven't your parents taught you what this word is? Approaching with a cart of juice, the stewardess looks up and smiles at Carol. Now, while all this is happening, the stewardess, she approaches towards them, and she's with a cart of juice. She's carrying a sort of a trolley which has juice to serve to people, and she looks at Carol and she smiles at her. Now, Carol is relaxed when she gets a sigh of relief, when she sees the stewardess with her, and she gets courage. So this gives her a rush of courage. She feels courage now, that she can retaliate, or she can answer back to these people, or she's got some help now. Leave me alone. Carol cannot stand anything anymore now, and she it's the limits, no, and she says, "Leave me alone." She screams at Mrs. Norton. She literally shouts. Passengers, they stare. So when Carol, she's shouting so loudly and she says, "Leave me alone," so everyone looks at them. They stare. The stewardess spills a drink, and everything happens so fast that Carol gets up all of a sudden and she shouts. So the drink which the stewardess is carrying, she spills that drink. The drink falls because of sudden all this is happening. Mrs. Norton sits back hard in her seat, her hands raised, fingers spread. Carol sees people watching. So all of a sudden the scenario has changed. Till now, there was just a sort of conversation going between Carol and Mr. and Mrs. Norton. But when it is enough for Carol, she cannot take it anymore. So she shouts and she stands up and she screams. And all of a sudden, Mrs. and Mr. Norton also, they get scared, sort of. They get so shocked, and they sit back hard on their seat, and their hands are literally raised and fingers spread, and everybody's when Carol gets up from her seat, she sees that people, they are watching her. Now, why do you keep asking me if my dad is a Negro? So, this is now what Carol is asking them loudly. So, why are you asking me whether my dad is a Negro? And she says, yes, he's a Negro. Okay, he's a Negro, and Negro. So, look at the bent of mind and the condition which Carol might be undergoing at this stage, that she retaliates back in this manner. So she literally shouts, yes, yes, my father is a Negro. And now we come. So now we start with paragraph 81. So Carol was very, very angry, and she was shouting, she was screaming so loudly, and she cannot take that anger, she cannot contain that anger anymore, the condition anymore, and she bursts out. She says, why are you asking me that whether my dad is a Negro? Yes, he is a Negro. And she's shouting, and everybody in the plane is looking at her. And even Mr. and Mrs. Norton, they are scared, and they try to calm her down. So calm down, Mrs. Norton says, reaching over. She reaches over. She tries to go towards Carol to calm her down. Don't touch her, the stewardess says. So now the stewardess, she's able to understand what is going on, because she has also, earlier also, she remembers that Carol had approached her to change her seat. And when she hears all this, she understands, and now she tells Mr. and Mrs. Norton not to touch Carol. Who are these people? Someone says from across the aisle. So somebody from the other side of the aisle, they also explain that exclaim that who are these people? Imagine talking to a child like that in 1970. So, when they also hear Carol speaking like this, they also understand what these people might be talking about to Carol, and they remark that who are these people, and imagine how can they talk to a child like this in the time of 1970s, when the racism, when the world was trying to come out of racism, and when the people were talking about equality. So people are shocked to hear. One woman sitting in front of Carol stands up and turns around. Would you like to come and sit with me, little girl? So one girl offers Carol, who's just sitting in front of Carol, that would you like to come and sit with me? No, Carol shouts. So look at the condition which she might be going to. She even refuses her. She says, no, I don't like all these questions. So she doesn't want to be actually in this place now. She just wants to run away if it would have been possible for her. She wants to run away from this plane also. So she says, no, I don't like all these questions. I don't want to be around all this place now. She keeps asking me how I would color my parents in a coloring book. Would you keep why do you keep asking me that? Now she's telling that, see what these people are asking me, that how would I paint my parents' face in a coloring book. And then she asks them, why are you asking me such question? Mrs. Norton pleads with Carol to stop. And now Mrs. Norton, she is not able to control the situation. She has never imagined that things could go out in this manner. And then she requests, pleads means requests. So she requests Carol to stop and to settle down, to calm down. But Carol is not able to control her now, and she cannot take it anymore. So after one thing, she's like literally blaming now these Nortons. How would you like if that had happened to you? Carol says. Now she wants explanation from the Nortons. She says, how would you like if somebody asks you these kind of questions? So what are you anyway? So she says, how would you feel if somebody asks you, what are you anyway? What are your parents? How would you color them? Well, I don't care. I don't even care. So she says, I don't care what you people mean and why are you asking me such questions. But how would you feel when you will be in this, you would have been in this situation? So, how would you like to come and sit with me? The stewardess says, smiling. So, the stewardess comes in and she tries to interfere in the situation. She tries to take hold of the situation. She offers Carol that, would you like to come and sit with me? I'll make you a special drink. So, she's trying to change the situation. She's trying to change the mind of Carol. She's trying to divert actually her attention. So she says, okay, you come and sit with me. Would you like to come and sit with me? I'll make you a special drink. Have you ever heard of Shirley Temple? The name of a drink. Carol nods enthusiastically, and Carol is, calmed down at this suggestion. She's happy, rather. She's excited. She says yes. Already she feels better. So she's feeling better when she has poured out all the feelings which were ducked up in her till now. So she says yes. When she has actually poured out all the anger, all the uh, confusion which she had in her mind. Now she's feeling better, and when the stewardess offers her, she feels better. Clutching Emmy, so clutching means holding. She holds Emmy and tries to take her out of her seat. She passes by the Nortons, so who swing their legs to let her out. So they try to control their legs in a particular position so that Carol could easily move out of her seat. My God, Carol hears Mrs. Norton tell her husband, talk about sensitive. Now, when Carol is going away, she hears this. Mrs. Norton say this to her husband, that my God, talk about sensitive. So the last line, the last line shows that people who have this kind of mind, they will never change. Even after, when so much had happened and Carol was so angry, and people were staring and looking at them, still when Carol moves away, Mrs. Norton is talking to her husband and she says to like talk about sensitive. See, when we talk about such issues which are still there in the world, and see how people react or they behave. So this shows that Mr. and Mrs. Norton, they are the ones who believe in racism, and whatever may happen, even if they show that they don't believe in such things, but inside them, they are the ones who are born, who have learned all these things, and who still believe, and they cannot come out of all these type of feelings. So that completes the chapter, and now you might have understood that through this chapter, the writer has brought to light a very, very sensitive issue of racism, of casteism, which exists in almost every society in one way or the other. Although, with the passage of time, with the changing of laws, with the awareness and knowledge around, with people becoming educated, people are trying to get out of these nowadays. We have many examples where we see people mixing up with each other. They don't mind. Even the religions, people are jumping religions and they marry each other. They don't mind. So, although gradually the world is coming out of that, but still there are people who believe in all this, and who pe- who will make other people also uncomfortable, like Mr. and Mrs. Norton. They made Carol. Although Carol had come from such a family who did not believe, and she had no idea about racism, but this is how they taught Carol actually. They made her realize that this is what racism is, and she belongs to one such caste which is looked down upon. So we complete this chapter. I request you to read this chapter at least twice, and try to do the A part, understanding the text. Try to find out their answers. You can mark them in the book, or you can write them somewhere in the rough. And next time we'll discuss them. Thank you and have a nice day.